Well,
All right.
we're back.
We are.
Good morning.
Episode 5. Right on.
There's a few loose ends that from previous episodes that I thought I'd tie up today. One of them that I had mentioned was, in my mind, the ugliest photograph I've ever seen. And this is when we were talking loosely about the herpes viruses and how zoster is the one we have as children is chicken pox, and then it comes back as shingles, right?
Right.
But anything that works for either of the herpes groups works for all of them, typically. And some of them are just simple tools that we don't have to work with in our immune system, you know, so we have to sort of back it up. But this is, the big orange blob here is a single skin cell, and I'm just going to bring this closer.
Yeah, I mean, it's otherwise a very beautiful image.
You can see, you can see all those little blue dots. So every one of those blue dots is a cold sore virus. And because somebody was stressed, the virus sensed vibrationally that it could come out and play. So it started replicating itself until there's so many of them that the cell has just exploded. And now all of this blue stuff is what's coming out of your face when you have a cold sore. Right. So this helps demonstrate just how highly infectious it is, because just a single one of those could get into a little shaving nick or something like that, and then somebody else has a cold sore, and so it goes.
Really demonstrates that principle of as above, for so below. It kind of, like you say, that kind of bursting of the cell, and then a rupture.
Yeah, it's just darn right creepy. But you realize what you're up against. There's...
And you were explaining kind of like the levels from that picture too.
Well, this is a closer up shot of a single virus, and the different coatings there, you've got black rings and then colored rings. So some of those rings are, the little blue dot in the middle is the actual virus. It's called a capsid. And one of the differences between bacteria and viruses is that bacteria, which are typically much larger, they can be bacteria living in your running shoe over there, or in a piece of bread laying on the counter, or even worse would be a burger laying on a plate for 2 hours waiting to put it on the barbecue. But bacteria don't need us.
No.
They can have a healthy life and 3 layers of grandchildren and die with smiles on their faces. They don't need us. But viruses have to get inside a living cell to reproduce. So they do need us, or some other creature. But they can't just grow in splendor on their own.
Right.
They need a living organism. They get inside a cell, and then they can reproduce. So in this case, when we look at the success a lot of us have had working with essential oils for something like a cold sore, like for a single oil, I might choose geranium, because it's not very expensive. There's other things like Melissa is very, very good, but quite a pricey one. Anyway, what's going to happen is the ketones and other compounds that are in the essential oil might be able to destroy the first fatty acid coating. I think the only thing in your body that might be able to do that might be, I never thought of this until just now, might be bile from your liver. But we don't get stuff from our liver internally. It doesn't run around. It's just going to do its job in the intestinal system, right? So there's nothing topically that we could use other than some sort of solvent, I suppose, which essential oils are, to destroy this coating. And then your white blood cells, the T cells, have little spray guns with a proteolytic enzyme. So they're going to destroy the next protein coating, and then the next treatment of oils is going to destroy the next fatty acid coating, and then your white blood cells can eat the next layer. And with each treatment, we're getting closer to the hole in the middle, the capsid, and actually destroy it. So sometimes it takes a few treatments, right?
Yeah.
I have one here, maybe, if I can find it. I won't hold you up too long. Well, that's another topic right there.
Holy.
Let's get that one out.
Got some cool photos down here.
Well, I'm just going to leave that one rather than waste time. But I think I have one in here. Wait a minute, now it's bothering me. Oh yeah, this is like David and Goliath. So the big glob is a bacteria, and the little glob is one of your T cells, and it's shot holes into the bacteria until all its guts ran out, and now it's sitting there like a happy little soldier, like happy little David going, look what I did. I blew a hole in that sucker, right? And it just shows you some of what's happening on a daily basis in your body with your immune system. We have, you hear about, well, I think I can do without that one. I'm looking for that one with the, gosh. Well, anyway, back to viruses. This is a much simpler photograph. And when you hear about zinc being a really good supplement to take when you're dealing with things like cold sores or shingles. So the gray area is a cell body, and those little black things are viruses, and kind of like the sperm and the egg thing, they're beaking away trying to get inside the cell. So in this picture, one of them has been successful, and there's one about halfway through there. Mm-hmm. And what zinc does is toughen up the cell membrane, which protects you from the viruses getting inside your living cells. But if you overdo it, if you take too much, it backfires because it makes the cell walls more brittle.
Right.
So it's one of the things where we do have to respect dosage,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Which is tough for some of us who think that more is always better.
Well, a lot of people think that way, hey, especially in our beautiful land.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, that's a neat looking one.
So phago means to eat.
Right.
So a phagocyte is one of the white blood cells that actually does its job by actually eating bacteria and other things in the body. And there's little ones and there's big ones. So macro means bigger. So a macrophage is a big eating machine.
Right.
And they're the ones that get around our big pipes like arteries pretty well, but they can't get around small little pipes in your lymphatic system. So we tend to put them in your lymph nodes, for example, mm-hmm. where the flow brings trouble to them. And they're hiding out in there like some sort of locker room.
Right.
And when the junk comes in the door, like there's a quick scuffle. So this thing is it's a phagocyte that was trying to eat asbestos fibers.
Really?
And what it's done is sort of a kamikaze mission where the asbestos fibers have now killed it. And when you hear about these conditions where people die from things like asbestos and other fibers that are synthetic, we just aren't designed to fight them. The phagocyte has no way of digesting those asbestos cells, so it's pretty much dead because it's full of swords. Right. It's like a Game of Thrones, right? So who's going to clean him up now?
Right.
So some of these lung afflictions that we get take forever to clean up, or people never clean them up successfully because we're continuing to inhale things that we're just not designed to be protected from.
Yeah.
You know, so.
And if you kill the cleanup crew.
Yeah, right. There's some other things here. I don't know if we'll get this one close enough, but this is switching to arthritis. You hear about some of these supplements like glucosamine and whatnot mm-hmm. that are, well, let's go to this one. So this round ball, this is a hip socket. That's what it should look like.
Nice and smooth.
Nice and clean and smooth and oily and whatnot. And then in this shot, that's a highly arthritic one where this whole protective coating that lets you move smoothly has been eaten away by something. And in some cases, they're parasites.
Right.
Some types of arthritis, they actually find parasites living in that coating that have eaten the protective coating. So some of the supplements will come back and try and smooth out the landscape. There's this one, if I can get it close enough. Right here, you'll see crystals coming out of that little hole. just like quartz crystals would. And those are dietary issues where you're over consuming certain foods that make you hyperacidic. You hear that word come up. So those crystals are grinding away on the other side of that joint and breaking up that whole surface, making it look like it's lunar or something.
Yeah.
Right? What else have I got? Oh, we were talking about tapeworms and things last segment. And I don't know if it came up, it's such a disgusting thing that by cell count, not weight necessarily, by cell count, the number of creatures living in and on your body outnumber you. That's just really creepy, I think. And this is a headshot of one of the little creatures that, this one was taken in somebody's eyebrows. And he's actually crawling around in your eyebrows eating stuff like dead skin. So he's doing you a favor. He's like the janitor. No reason to kill him with chemicals because he's actually doing good work for you. But to look at them, they're just creepy. And these are the ones, back to, for a very short part of my life, I was selling vacuum cleaners.
Oh, yeah.
And on opening day, the boss had one of the eldest salesmen take me out to kind of show the new kid the ropes. And the first place that he took me was to a department store. And I said, oh, are we going to sell them a vacuum? And he said, no, see that big chrome in it? No, I already sold them one. It's really good. It's the best thing we can sell. And he said, no, you need something. And we went to the back of the store where they had all of the cloth materials. And he would have preferred black, I think, but I think we went for a dark navy blue. And he said, are you visiting with your parents again now? Does your mom sew? And I said, yes. So he had the lady take out a big bunch, a big swath, there's these big long things of yard goods, I think they're called, right? Because they're yard wide, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. So we bought a couple of yards, and he cut them into squares about more than a foot, maybe 18, 20 inches wide. And he showed me that what you do is when you go door to door knocking and you want to display the performance of your equipment, so you have these carefully folded inside your pockets and up your sleeves and everything, so you can have about 20 of them stashed without, it's like a magical trick, right? And you get in the door, and right there in the porch, you show them you have a brand new machine, and you put a clean bag in, disposable bag, and then you stuff the cloth into the bag and very carefully close the vacuum so that the cloth doesn't get sucked away. And you vacuum up just about a yard by the porch there, and then show them what's there. And it's a big pile of crap, and then you just leave that on the floor, and you go another 6 feet into the house where there's some carpet,
Yeah.
and you vacuum that, and you leave another thing about this wide on the floor, and you're about halfway into the house, and there's all of this crap laying on the floor, and the housewife is looking, oh my God, I thought I had a clean house here, right?
Yeah.
So if you can convince them to get into a bedroom, because a lot of people are worried you're going to see stained sheets or something, you say, no, we're just going to, I just want to get the power nozzle, we're just going to lift up a corner of the bed stuff all together,
Yeah.
and I'm going to get the power nozzle because I want to vacuum the mattress. And when you open that one up, there's like a cupful, like literally a cupful of, it almost looks exactly like the color of the inside of your arm, because it really is dead skin cells.
Right.
So there's that much stuff in your mattress, and that's what these guys are crawling around eating, right?
Yeah.
So you have as many as a dozen different species of parasites that live in your mattress.
Right.
But they aren't necessarily doing you any harm. It's just like we go visit the zoo. The animals are safe, and so it's a bit of a thing.
Yeah, we are truly an ecosystem, aren't we?
We are our own little planet.
Yeah, and
Each
if
of
you
us.
are more other things, other cells, than you are your own cells, who's really running the show, hey, Blaine?
That you're aware of. Well, and that's why when we got into, like the other day, we were talking about how, maybe that's enough. We can have such high levels of organisms in our body that they can actually mind control.
Right.
And
yeah.
they'll make you crave something that they want.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking about candida,
Yeah.
and they won't let you pass that chocolate display sorry to go on chocolate, but just in the store, candies and simple sugars and things like that, because that's what they want you eating, so that they're happy and have lots of kids and keep expanding and own more of your turf, so that we can get to levels like we were talking briefly about leaky gut syndrome, things like that. When the more your candida levels go up, the more you end up with the holes in your tummy. But
speaking of ecosystems, like, a lot of indigenous cultures would view like a mountain, for instance, as a living being, certain areas. Obviously, we identify individuals, humans, trees, animals, but
rocks. I had a hard time getting my head over that one.
Yeah. What's your perspective on rocks?
Well, a friend of mine introduced me to crystals many years ago. I had never worked with them, and I got a couple as gifts. And then at one of the health expos where I had a booth, the guy across from me had a booth, and we were the two busiest booths in the show.
Yeah.
And I got wandering over there and looking at certain things, and my staff had a little more knowledge than I did. And I went over to the guy and I said, I know this is a retail show and you're hoping to sell them retail, but I'm hoping, would you give us wholesale prices? Because we're peers here. And the guy said, sure. So I said, well, that big pink ball over there and that 6-inch tall angel and this one over here, my staff would really, like, these were $1,000 pieces.
Right.
So if those are over, if they're still there when the show's over,
yeah,
those aren't going home, they're coming home with the kids. So we're counting out cash at the end of the show. But slowly, I got to the point where this is dealing with energy fields. But as I got more into crystals and had thousands of dollars worth of them in my own collection, as well as selling them to some of my clients, it got to the point where I'm very confident that if you took me to a crystal show, you could come with me to make sure I didn't trip over anybody, but we're going to blindfold me.
Right.
And I'm going to go through the crystal show with a blindfold on and just be scanning over the displays. Ooh. Because you feel the energy fields.
Yeah.
And the more that you do that, and we played a little bit with that on 2 episodes ago, but the more that you do that, the more that you realize the energy is there. So I started to realize, back to indigenous thinking, maybe every rock on a riverbed has a story to tell.
Yeah.
It used to live way up there on the mountain, but well, not necessarily earthquakes, but I always love when you see things like there's a little crack in a big boulder and water gets in and it freezes in the winter, which is larger, and it might make a huge boulder split open, and then some compost, whatever, dust ends up getting in there, some earth, and then pretty soon there's a spruce tree growing in that crack.
Yeah.
And then as it gets bigger, the roots expand, and all of a sudden this huge boulder breaks in half because of just simple natural effects like that. And eventually that continues until we have sand.
Right.
So when you pick up a handful of sand on a beach, maybe there's 1,000 stories there. And, I'm not that far yet, but can you feel the energy coming out of a handful of sand?
Right.
Like a lot of several generation old farmers would be able to pick up and sniff and just hold with their eyes closed a handful of dirt and go, we're going to grow good things here.
Yeah.
I was out sifting my compost in the back alley one September, October is when I used to do it. And you can tell who's into gardening because there was one woman coming up the alley with her dog, and she said, "Oh, you're into the black gold there." That's what she carved, because I sifted it, and I was just so I didn't lose any, and then I'd have a tarp there with the final nice compost ready to go.
Yeah.
And she, there's the black gold.
Oh, totally.
So she knew what I was doing. Where other people would probably go by and think, "Who's this idiot playing with weeds and a bunch of stinky dirt there?"
That's kind of where I've really started with my gardening journey. I mean, I've always had plants in my room and house and that kind of thing. We did a little bit as we were kind of renting throughout the years. We would bucket garden because we never anywhere long enough.
Yep.
but I always have just been into like building compost, and we would take our compost with us, like from house to house, and I'm getting pretty good at it.
Well, now you've made it a way of life. It's
Yeah.
part of your business too.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's been interesting. I've enjoyed so much introducing people that have just never done it. And one of my favorites, I had several different colors of amaryllis in my home. And it's very easy with an amaryllis because the flowers are this big.
Yeah.
And when an amaryllis flower has just opened, it's a baby screaming there. You can just take your hand. Here's the flower. You can start this far away, and as you come closer, as you get closer to that flower, it's like, wow, is that really? Yes. And as you get, it's just a huge energy field coming off that flower, right?
Yeah.
You may not feel it so easily off a pansy,
Right.
but when you have a big, like an amaryllis flower, like, whoa.
Yeah.
And that glow, whenever I bother to do that, just really warms my heart.
Nice.
And that sort of exchange of energy probably means I'm immune to almost anything for at least the rest of the day,
Yeah.
because I got some glow on from that flower.
Oh, I love it.
So
I love how we segued from crystals to compost to the energy fields of amaryllis.
well, it's all part of the earth, isn't it?
Yeah,
And the earth's our home, and we have to respect it more.
totally.
So
And-
I remember when I was, as Terry would say, a herbal sprout, when I was first studying herbology. And one of the things he said was how Gaia, our Mother Earth, was kind of like a little ladybug. And they're just so cute and shiny little red and black things. But if they actually open their wings to fly, they make a lot of noise.
Yeah.
And they kind of go clack, 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 clack. And they're big. They'd be scary if you took a photograph of them. The wings are way bigger than the little bug is. And how Mother Earth, the more that we keep poking holes in her, the more she's going to get upset. And that's what we've been doing. And I really believe that that's where we are now with all of these earthquakes and bad weather and more fires and hurricanes. And like our Earth Mama is a little cranky with us.
For sure. Yeah.
And I virtually accept that we deserve to go extinct, like the dinosaurs did. The planet's come through a lot of cycles over its life, ice ages and things like that,
Yeah.
just to clean up the trash.
Yeah.
So maybe we're due for one.
Yeah, there's these cycles, right? These great extinctions, which a friend of mine, he says, you know what? There's some real optimism there. The fact that the human species, life continues despite these kind of great die-offs, these extinctions. And I think, a lot of it speaks to what you're saying about the amaryllis, or even that we are more other cells than we are human cells. Like there's just so much there to observe, to take in, to appreciate, to connect with. Like you say, you connect with the amaryllis, you're good for the rest of the day. You got the glow on, I think that's what Mother Earth wants. That's what the plants want. And I think that's the way through is shifting our awareness and our appreciation. I'm a bit conflicted about the whole environmental movement right now because, I was, born and raised in nature, essentially. Not, mother didn't give birth to me out in the forest, but you know what I mean? Like that was kind of our church, as you would, and my connection growing up. And then as a teenager, really started to deeply experience what I think we all experience is like that ecological wound, like just seeing the earth. Even just being kind of born and raised in Northwest Calgary and, suburbia and the ever greater sprawl, I appreciate all that time that I had in nature, but yet you feel it on a deep soul level, loss of species and habitat and all that. But the political landscape of it's becoming kind of co-opted. Like I don't believe in carbon credits, and I don't believe any politician really has the answers that's going to steer us out of it. It's got to come from...
I'm with you there.
Yeah, individuals and a shift in our own consciousness and a shift in our own awareness and appreciation and how we live. And it's going to start there, It's kind of simple and silly as it is, feeling the energy of an amaryllis and how that might then shift your day, which will shift the choices that you make. And
Yeah. And you might smile at somebody instead of giving them the finger. I just had a flash listening to you just now of it was many years ago. I was a pipe smoker at the time, and I had lighters that I would refill with butane, and somebody had taught me that when you go to put the butane in, you can just at room temperature go and all this gas is spraying around. Or if you put the lighter in the freezer for a while, when you hook up the butane can, it just takes 1 second to go into the frozen state, and it's a liquid in there. It's just, you don't waste any of it. A butane can lasts you for the rest of your life. But I remember looking at a Bic lighter when they first came out. It was a red one. A friend had a red one. And I looked at it for a long time and thought, do we need these?
Right.
That was the beginning of the end for me, that like now a little latch goes, so we throw out a whole microwave.
Right, yeah.
You know, we've become so disposable. And we're running out of places. That's a big part of the anti-electric car movement right now, is that what do we do with all those batteries?
Oh, man.
You know, for starters, we're strip mining them, which is an ugly thing to do to the skin of the earth.
Yeah.
Years ago, when I was a musician, we were playing in Estevan for a week or two, and I went out to visit where they surface mine coal there. And they have a name for him. He's like Mr. something or whatever, for this huge drag machine that has a bucket big enough to pretty much pick up your house. It's that big of an operation.
Yeah.
When I drove around, it was a really bumpy ride, but I was driving my little station wagon in the tire tracks of the trucks that have about 14 wheels that take the coal out to the processor where it gets burnt to spin the turbines to create all of this steam. It's a huge electrical plant, right?
Yeah.
And I have some pictures somewhere of the operator for that big bucket. There's the part of the machine that he's in. The bucket's about this big, let's say, and then there's a little thing on the side of it about this big with a man in it.
Yeah.
Like that's the scope of the machinery that we rape the earth with. And now apparently we're doing that to the ocean bottoms as well.
Right.
And that's our last frontier. We've mapped the mountains, but we still haven't mapped the seabeds.
Right.
You know, in the deepest parts of the ocean, we don't even know what's down there. Could be whole cities of aliens. Like, we really don't know what's in the bottom of the oceans, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we've had when you look at the greater picture of life on this planet, our species really hasn't been around that long. But I feel like we've done more damage than almost anything short of an asteroid hit. You know, like it's pretty amazing what we take for granted in our culture with all our modern needs.
So here's an interesting question for you. You know, we can pretty much, and maybe there's a false assumption here in the question here, but I'm going to lean more towards we can look at pretty much any species out in nature, right? Like, seems to have a place, seems to have a role in the ecosystem, kind of very harmonious. And I know it can definitely be a battle and a dog-eat-dog, you know, kind of metaphor of a world. It's not all, you know, a Disney movie in nature, but everything's kind of seems to have a role and a place and a balance. Do humans have that role, have that place? And if so, you know, and maybe another way to phrase it is, what is the ecological function or role of the human? And do we belong here, right? Like, we're the only ones that need to, you know, clothe ourselves. And, you know, like, it doesn't seem like we're that adapted.
Well, now we're shifting into talking about extraterrestrials.
Yes, I know. I was
there's a
there,
lot of,
there are theories about that.
There's a lot of different beliefs that, for example, apparently, and this really surprised me, that even our oceans were filled with water that came from asteroids, but a lot of precious metals came on asteroids.
Right.
And when we look at how many cultures in our known history were always after gold. Gold's always been so valuable, right? And so many people got sidetracked by making jewelry out of it just because it was valuable, so it meant you were rich. crystals and precious gems are precious too, because you don't find that many. So there's a lot of people now that believe we're actually here almost as keepers. We're like cows. We're just we're here to protect, and we're doing a lousy job of it, the oceans, because we're one of the few planets nearby that have water. So maybe we're just like a big gas station. We're a big watering hole for some other type of life form.
Yeah.
And the part that is fairly recent news, again, I've been watching all these documentaries lately because I've had more time laying in the hospital in my home care thing, that gold is the best thing. I've been aware for years that if you've got a really expensive stereo, all of just the wires you hook up your speakers with are really expensive because all the tips and everything are gold plated.
Right.
And circuit boards are like gold is the best semiconductor. And when we think about these super beings flying around with aircraft we haven't learned how to do yet, they need a lot of gold for their electronics.
Right.
So we're here just to mine the planet for gold.
Yeah.
And have for many lifetimes.
Well, and one of the theories that I've heard of kind of human origins is we were kind of a mix between, monkeys and aliens, like bred together, and you get a human. That was then used to
And now we've found that we actually have more reptilian DNA than monkey DNA.
Right.
So all of the old sculptures and artists that have these, like the gods all had snake heads and whatnot, like maybe that's our real past.
Yeah.
Boy, we could go on about this for a week, and we only have an hour or whatever. But I know that'll offend some people because they're blind enough to think that, life on other planets just couldn't exist. Like it's just us, and we're the greatest thing, and God will protect us, and all of that. But think about, I know when I was a child, there was a popular belief that little green men from Mars were going to come and attack us.
Right.
Well, we're the ones colonizing Mars now.
Right.
So we ourselves are aliens.
Right.
We're visiting another planet and colonizing it.
Right. That's
starting
true.
to work on colonizing. So who's pointing the finger at who here? You know what I mean? Like, So.
But yeah, I mean, it kind of comes back to what you're saying. I mean, as above, so below, like that kind of micro, all these pictures that you were showing and the levels of, bacterias on viruses, on parasites, on,
Where do we fit in?
Yeah, and of course I think it goes, just as much as it goes down, it goes up into whatever, right? Just look at the solar system and who knows what's out there.
It fascinates me to know that when you look up at the night sky, most of the stars that you're seeing actually died a long time ago.
Right.
It's just taking the light that long to get to us.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff just absolutely rocks my head.
Yeah.
That you think you're watching something that exists, but it actually died a long time ago.
Right.
The speed of light and all of that. Pretty crazy. How did we get onto that?
Yeah. So another theory I've heard kind of in relation to the Earth in terms of Gaia, and this kind of comes back to, the tree to a forest being an organism, to the Earth being its own organism, right? It's an entity, it's a living being, and that maybe these kind of, the cycle that we're going through is a reproductive cycle where it's kind of using up all of its kind of internal resources to spread its seed, put it out elsewhere.
So we're going to be the seed colonizing?
We might play a role in that, in terms of getting it beyond Earth's atmosphere out into space. But
now, as soon as you said atmosphere, things popped up in my head. I found it interesting that when we first got aircraft, and scientists were kind of curious, what is our atmosphere? And so when we first had like biplanes and things, scientists were actually going up and literally just filling 4-liter jars or pails with the air from up there and bringing it back to the lab and analyzing it. And as aircraft's gotten better and better and we've gotten higher and higher and higher into the outer atmosphere, the only thing that we consider living on this planet that can withstand the deep vacuum of space is mushroom spores.
Right.
So a mushroom can pop up in your backyard and have its fruiting body and drop a couple million spores with a little bit of breeze, and they can get up in the air and get up way out into the outer reaches of the atmosphere and end up falling in somebody's yard 200 years later due to weather conditions and start anew, right? And that just amazed me that mushroom spores, I mean, again, I started out just like eating them, but there's so much going on that we're just beginning to learn about the medicinal effects, but the frequency values, reishi, for example, when we look at frequencies and how there's the range that our brain covers with delta state during deep sleep and all of that, beta and theta and these different things that we understand, or think we do. A lot of, you've brought up myceliums a few times. So part of why mushrooms like reishi have a calming effect is they carry the frequency of deep delta sleep, which is sort of a single wavelength might be 4 seconds long. It's like like you were just in heavy traffic and you came up, where are you going? I'm shopping a minute, whatever. Your brain frequency is like this. And you take some reishi and it's like like each wave is 4 seconds long. So it calms you down. And all these other frequencies that we're just beginning to even think about, like I was saying, feeling a crystal has something else going on there, a different frequency. We're babies. Again, all these documentaries I've been watching, it's interesting that all over the planet, places you visited, haven't, where they're wondering what's happened to the Incas, for example, and the Incas really wondered where they came from, and they're doing their own digs, and they're finding places where, I saw a bit of this in France when we were there, where there's certain places on the planet where we've built temples on top of temples on top of temples on top of temples, and some of these go almost back to the Ice Age, where people have found certain spots on the planet, to worship. And for those of us that accept extraterrestrial life of whatever form, like the Egyptians at midday, I know when I was a kid, the teacher told us that how the sun worked and it came across the sky, and those silly Egyptians worshipped it because they thought it was some magic rider of a golden chariot or something like that, at midday, when the sun was at its highest, right above us, they would gather and light a whole bunch of incense up in front of the temples. So the word perfume goes back to Latin. Parfumum means through smoke. So smoke rises, and through smoke we get God's attention. So whatever your beliefs in God are, does it really have enough power to see every one of us every day? It would take a lot of microprocessors to handle that kind of data, right? But is that even doable? It's hard to get your head around that when you think about it. But
what does happen though, is we get our own attention, right? So we were walking up the door, and there's that plant right there, lily of the valley. You're like, oh, what a nice smell on those flowers, right? It gets our attention.
Well, I actually give a wink to the pansies,
right?
Because they're just sitting there with their cute little faces welcoming me to your home. Hi, that's better than a big welcome sign, if you're in tune with that sort of, But back to the Egyptians, they would light cauldrons of incense, and they called the sun god Ra. So when he was at his highest performance for the day, straight overhead, they'd be yelling, Ra, 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 Ra. Now we do that at football games, right? But
Yeah.
but they were worshiping the sun, and if you think about it, when you look at the sun, it looks exactly the same as a ship coming down. And when he was straight overhead, it was like Ross coming back to visit us again. Maybe if we yell loud enough, he'll hear us.
Right.
Like one voice at a time isn't that powerful. You know, could God in any form actually hear you whining about a problem? But when we all gather together in a church or a temple
Right.
with one voice, we become strong, and to get his attention, we burn incense.
Right.
So things like frankincense and myrrh, the smoke rises, and we get attention, and now we get together with one big prayer. Maybe he'll hear that.
Right.
Because in numbers, we have a bigger voice. And every religion on the planet does that, from Africans with their drumming, and it's all about getting attention, right, to the gods. But there were places, well, like I was saying, where you get these special places on the planet. How many cultures have built layer on layer that the archaeologists are digging up, and what's so special about that spot?
Yeah.
And then we get into electromagnetic fields and all sorts of other theories, right? And these so-called ley lines and different things with the electrical fields of the earth.
Yeah.
I know even just hiking in the nearby mountains, there was a day I was walking along, and I just kind of stopped because it was almost like I walked into a window. And there was nothing there. There was nothing I could see, but it was palpable.
Right.
I started, like, I literally, and I backed up and forward again, and there was an energy field there. And I started to walk around a little bit, and it's like, is something buried here? Is there bones? Is there a ship? Is there a special rock? Like, what's here? But there's something here. The trees don't look any different. I'm in a forest, right in the middle of a forest, but there's something going on here.
Yeah.
You can't see it,
Right.
but you can touch it, and things like that have just...
Yeah, that's cool. And humans we're drawn to those power spots, either because a certain culture, like you said, they sensed a spot, and maybe that's how it starts, and or by I'm thinking of like places like Patagonia and Arizona or Salt Spring Island. I've even heard Canmore, or Boness, just here in Calgary. Like, they had spots for different reasons. Like, maybe it was a place to gather, maybe it was a place to bury their dead, maybe it was a place to... And I think, doing that over generation would continue to kind of build that energy, and people are drawn to it, like Nelson or Sedona. There's a palpable energy, and sometimes in our modern culture we're drawn to it, but we don't quite understand it. Like, some of those places you find some pretty out there people, because maybe the indigenous had a special spot, for a ceremony, but they would never live there because the energy was too much. And I'm thinking of a few places like that in particular. And then you think of Sedona, where, you said, okay, I'm looking at the forest here, the trees seem fine. There's all those vortexes around there. You can get
Sure.
the map and tour around. But what's neat is, some you can see it in how the tree grows. Like, sometimes the tree is spiraled in its growth.
You would have worked, or at least heard of or seen the Lemurian seed crystals.
Yeah, yeah.
When I first, my first part of that was, my broker was a guy who came in from the Vernon area, or Enderby actually, and he'd have a van full of crystals and would go around to some of the retailers in the city, and eventually that grew big enough that he would just rent a hotel suite and take bookings, and we'd all go there to shop. But when I started buying from him, again, it started with being neighbors at a trade show, and we had the busiest booth, so we always wanted to book it that way so that we were across from each other, so that we could cover each other's booth. Like, if there was only one person in the booth and you had to go for a pee, like, we'd keep an eye on your booth for you, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And this... He literally, we were about done, and he said, "Oh, do you need any Lemurians?" And he was moving some boxes in the back of the van, and one of them fell out, and it hit my foot before it hit the garage pad, or it probably would have broke on the cement. And and he left some information that I don't know anything about. So I bought a couple, and there was one that just, and I hope it's still around. I hope it didn't get sold. That just, it fits my hand so perfectly. It's almost like a pistol grip. It just fits my hand. I feel like I could aim it or something, and that's the one that became my pet. And as we started buying more, I remember one occasion where my girlfriend at the time had gone to the bus depot to pick up an order, and she was really into crystals and things, and she almost had trouble driving home with this box of crystals,
Right.
because they were giggling and doing all this. Hey, we're going to go in a new home now. There was all this action coming out of the box, and she was having trouble focusing on driving. And then when we brought them home, if you picked up any one of the older stock with any of the new ones, there was just this whole, hey, well, what's happened to you? I haven't seen you for 3 months. Yeah, well, we were in this place in BC. Like, there'd be,
Right.
you could almost hear a conversation going down. If you picked up 2 of the new ones, yeah, well, I saw you in the box yesterday. There wasn't much happening. You pick up 2 of the old ones, there wasn't much. But if you picked up one of each,
Yeah.
you know, it was like a conversation. And I had some that I literally feared for my life. That if I picked up 2 of them, I thought my heart was going to stop.
Wow.
Excuse me. That was just a little too much air sucking.
Yeah.
Me and my talking with my hands. It was such a jolt that I didn't dare do it again.
Right. Wow.
I thought my heart would stop, you know? So there's just something going on there that we don't quite understand.
I'd heard about some of those Lemurian crystals, and maybe a lot of the other ones that are similar, that they put a lot of the information, they're like libraries, like books.
Well, that's the other part my mind went, because they're instead of just quartz, they have all these lines on them.
Yeah.
And stuff. And I thought, maybe these are just somebody's dental records. Like some of these crystal freaks are getting carried away here. And the only reason they're where they are in certain places in Brazil or wherever they were coming from, maybe that was part of one of these great shifts where the continents moved and stuff like that, and so a whole bunch of stuff got buried.
Yeah.
You know? But I got thinking about, if I took one of my favorite songs from high school and I took a 45 record to some African tribesman and told him one of my favorite songs,
Right.
and he would just hold this
Yeah.
flat disc and he'd hold it to his ear maybe, and
Right, like-
wonder what to do with it. But in those little lines wrapped around the disc, there's music there.
Yeah.
So I got thinking that maybe these were, like I said, records of some kind.
Yeah,
Whether it
totally.
was music or somebody's dental records or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And we had no business playing with them at all. You know, we should have left them there with somebody's old office space. So there's just so much we don't know. But
Totally. I mean, look at the technology we have today, right?
you can there's the old saying about there's 2 sides of a coin. Well, now today we can put the entire history of Calgary on the edge of the coin,
Right.
right? Or with our new storage systems, you know.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And so, forget 2 sides of the coin. You could write the history of man on the edge
Right.
of a box, this big. And where are we going from here?
Well, here's a curious thought. And someone brought this up to me like a number of years ago, and I've thought about it occasionally ever since, right? And I think the conclusion is that the Earth is growing. Because where is history? You've mentioned it several times. You know, it's just like layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. Like, where's the past? Well, it's underneath the Earth. Like, there's just constantly like more and more getting layered on top of it.
Well, asteroids keep coming in.
Yeah. And, you know, we look at a plant, right? Like, it's creating matter. It's not like it's consuming the soil, and that's what it's building from. It's building from sunlight and air and
Creating new soil.
yeah. And then it's like the old compost, like the chop and drop, right? Like whoosh, whoosh, you
Yeah, I
keep
never
layering
thought of
on-
that before. Like one little seed produced the tree across the road there.
right?
photons and other energy comes from space. Yeah. But back to this, maybe our role here is just to mine precious metals and so on and so forth, and somebody's taking care of us so we can take care of the planet.
Right.
And we're not doing a very good job, it seems, or are we? A lot of people still think that we can solve all of our problems with technology.
Right.
That's not the bent I'm on. I think we're rather past that. And yet we think about things like, I think I was in junior high when the show 2001: A Space Odyssey came out.
Right.
And that was a very, very powerful, I think it was Stanley Kubrick that had written that. And that, you don't get it all in the movie because there's so much going on. I had to read the book right away. But it tied so many things together that it almost became like my Bible for a while, because it helped tie in Darwin's missing link. Like there was a red-haired tribe and a brown-haired tribe, and there was only one watering hole. And at the start of the movie, this monolith appeared just right in the middle of the trail. And as the black tribe was coming towards the water hole, this thing, they were all walking around it. It was just this huge thing they'd never seen before in the middle of the trail. And they were banging it and touching it. And all of a sudden, it just sent out this incredibly piercing, high-frequency noise. And they were all holding their heads and falling on the ground and so on and so forth. But the next day, when they came and the red-haired tribe was there, one of them picked up a rib from a dead animal and kind of thwacked it in his hand and looked down at these guys and thought, wow, whack, whack. I think I could beat the crap out of somebody with this. So we got, the inspiration to discover tools might have come from this weird monolith, which came from somewhere, and there's Darwin's missing link figured out. Now, we got a lot of holes in Darwin's theories, but I think a lot of his whole premise was almost, I don't want to say laughable, it's too strong of a word, but you take every primate around the world and tried to figure out what brought us that shift that gave only us the ability to reason.
Right.
And he was just looking at a whole bunch of bones. So evolution exists because it's still happening, right? With different fish, animals, birds, everything. We come up with. I was astonishing to see a show just a few weeks ago about how many different hummingbirds there are. Some of them have these bills that are this long or almost totally C-shaped, and there's only 2 flowers that they can get the nectar from.
Right.
But the flowers wouldn't reproduce if the hummingbirds weren't there, because they've got these incredibly long beaks that can go in to get the nectar, and that's how they pollinate. And so, like you were saying, they go together. It's teamwork.
Yeah.
There's so much fascinating stuff going on the planet. But that show meant a lot to me at the time because it tied so many different theories together. I think Kubrick's work was brilliant there, even though in the time since, a lot of it has sort of fallen off. But what happened in the story in that film was that, or in the book, was that whenever it was, whoever they were that came down and put those monoliths around, they thought, well, whenever these creatures have further interest to us, they're going to develop enough technology to find their way to the moon. So that's what the show was all about. They were digging, exploring on the moon, and a giant monolith was there. And when they uncovered it, this incredible signal shot off into space. And they had enough technology to track it and saw that it was going to, I can't remember which planet. So they assembled a spaceship that was going to be good enough to go all the way there to see what's at the end of that signal.
Right.
And along the way, the HAL 9000, it was the computer, decided that why do I need these human beings? I can do this mission better myself. So
Right.
he started killing the crew. But one man beat the computer.
Right.
Okay, so he won. And his gift, at the end of the show, there was just this huge fetus filling the night sky, filling this space. And his gift for beating the computer, he in essence became the Christian God. His job was to just keep watch on human beings now.
Right.
There's a lot going on in somebody's book, that somebody's mind created, thought about all of these things. The guy was a genius, and I think.
Yeah, totally.
So it just tied so many things together, many of which have been outproven. But anyway, the point of bringing all that up was that at that time, which is just one lifetime ago, the guys that were out there in their spacesuits watching the dig on the moon, the guys running the show, or the boss was down there, or the head contractor, or whoever, they had these, they weren't very big at all, about this big, and they were punching buttons, and they were talking to the people back in the headquarters or on the mothership with new photographs and doing all this, and like, wow, like those will ever exist. Now 8-year-olds
Right.
have iPads.
Yeah.
And that's all happened during my lifetime.
Oh gosh.
That most of what was science fiction when we were kids,
Yeah.
we take for granted now.
Yeah.
We've come that far just within one lifetime.
Yeah.
And we all agree that, like, it's a standing joke that if you can't figure out something with your computer, find an 8-year-old and they'll fix it for you in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Just so, our technology, our whole intelligence is changing so quickly. Man, we're covering a lot of ground here this morning.
I know. Yeah.
This is fun.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's that exponential curve. Like everything is on that.
we
right
can,
now.
maybe the technology can save us. I don't know. We see it.
But I think ultimately, come back, we need to shift ourselves, like our own consciousness. Like, technology won't do that for us. We'll still be, in the same space, be it dissatisfied, disconnected, whatever it is. Like, technology's a tool.
Yeah. In this life form, though, we need water and we need air.
Yeah.
And in that essence, if our planet's going to make it, we have to get our act together to do what we can. It was becoming evident just even within a short time when COVID hit us that animals were coming back out of hiding, and there was more fish in some water, and the water was clear because we just quit flying planes around.
Right.
And the traffic all stopped, so it was quieter. Mm-hmm. People quit moving. So what would happen if we cut the current population in half,
Yeah.
or even by 70%?
Mm-hmm.
How much would that do to save the planet by itself without having people with posters or demonstrating or whatever just
Yeah.
nix a few of us? And,
I mean, nature is so highly regenerative. I mean, I've got a friend who's got a family farm up near Edmonton. And as soon as they kind of switched their practices, and they're kind of like a little oasis in a desert of industrial agriculture, they went to regenerative agriculture. And like Jesus said, like the number of species that started returning to his land was just amazing.
birds and such.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's possible for sure.
Even my little backyard
Yeah.
that's gone. It's a 25-foot lot,
Yeah.
but I took away, it's so funny, grass started in Europe with people saying, look at me, I am so spoiled, I can waste this land.
Yeah.
I tax all of these people around me so I can eat their food. And I have enough money that I can waste my yard to just planting a lawn.
Yeah.
And now here we are with, whole cities covered with lawns that are useless.
Yeah.
And typically we use chemicals to kill. Like the dandelion was brought to North America by Europeans because it's such a darn good herb, and we kill it because it looks ugly in our lawns with chemicals that are so hard on the liver, where it's actually one of the best kidney and liver herbs. That's why they brought it here.
Yeah, yeah.
And now we're using evil chemicals to destroy it.
Yeah.
But back, tying it in with technology, now they found out that the latex that in the stems, well, some of us have known for years, is a highly antifungal. Mm-hmm. It's good for treating things like warts and athlete's foot and things like that. But it's also, latex can be used it's already in some of the car tires.
Right.
That, they're finding that rubber is in a shortage. So
yeah, you were mentioning this.
Scientists thought, hey, well, what about this latex that's in some of the weeds growing around here? So some of the tire companies now have whole big farms where they're growing dandelions just to get that latex out of them.
See, it means things like that, right? Like just dropping the stupidity around dandelions and lawns. Like, I mean, that would make such a huge... That's where a lot of my optimism comes from. It's like there's so many things like that if we just a little, like, just stop doing this, shift over here. Yep. Like, you do that a trillion times, in small places, like... Whew.
Well, where I skipped a beat was my backyard was all river rock and a couple of ponds and a lot of moss and things like that. So the waterfalls made noise, and birds flying around might be drinking water out of mud puddles in the backyard, in the back alley after rain, but they had nice clean water in the ponds. And man, I had species of birds coming into my yard on a daily basis that I had no idea even had a flyby route, migration track pattern in our area. I'd have to get out the books, and I've been aware of birds my whole life. I've been quite a junior naturalist growing up, and all sorts of birds. I wish I'd had the time to be photographing them, because there was so many there.
Yeah.
I ran into one that we were out just finishing dinner, Jennifer and I, and her whole family, they come from Ontario, are, is it ornithologists? Is that, what are bird people?
Ornithologists.
Ornithologists, yeah. Her whole family. When her and I started dating, we'd be out in the woods somewhere, and I might be making breakfast, and I'd hear a little hoot from the forest, and I said, oh, there's a little owl over there. And she'd say, well, that's actually a 12-striped, 13-toed, 2-year-old female with a headache. Like she just know everything about the birds. So we were having supper one night, and she said, that's a female cardinal.
No way.
And I said, it can't be, honey. There's no cardinals in Alberta. Like, they don't even make it as far west as Winnipeg. Like, those are easy. I know you know them back home, but there's no cardinals in Alberta. And she said, that's a female cardinal. And she went into the house and went online and brought me out a single page with 30 pictures of female cardinals, just to make her point. And I had to look at the bird and all the pictures. Well, there's no doubt that's a female cardinal. Wow. What's it doing here? And I had to generate some theories, like maybe it flew into the back of a semi-trailer full of yard furniture and got stuck in the truck and just ended up here, because it was really looking sad and lonely.
Right.
It's kind of like, well, where's the rest of my family? Where'd everybody go? It had that whole vibe coming off of it. But I got talking with, I can't remember his name, he was at one of the herb gatherings that Donna and friends got together at, was that Pine Lake or wherever? I don't know, a few years back.
Right.
And there was what did we say?
Ornithologist.
An ornithologist there that was doing a presentation, and he had a CD that he was selling. He just had a few with him. He didn't have like booth or anything like that. But he'd recorded a lot of bird calls. And I brought this up with him about how could we end up with a female cardinal in our backyard. And he said, actually, you're the second one that's brought this up.
Really?
He said, there's another one. and he didn't mind my theory about it got stuck in a truck. But he said, no, it's got a lot to do with all of our changing weather patterns. And, different species are going a little further that way than they used to because the winters are warmer or whatever. So he was more on the weather bent, I think.
Right.
But Plants, like I had at least a dozen different colors of lilies growing in my front yard. And there's this little red beetle that apparently just, you can't kill it with anything. You have to hand pick them. It doesn't respond to any of the normal chemicals we've been using for bugs. And it came over from Asia, probably in some, again, it could have been a pallet full of Lord knows what. Apparently it started in Quebec or Ontario, and it's been slowly moving each year, getting a little further west. And we've got them in Calgary now probably for, well, that was 2 years before, about 5 years now. And they don't make little holes in the leaves. They don't turn the leaves brown. They don't get in between the layers of leaf and that sort of thing. They actually eat the whole freaking plant.
Right.
And I lost all of my lilies
No way.
to these little red bugs. The woman next door was trying to save some of hers, literally, picking the potted plant up on a table and, looking at it closely and pulling each bug off with tweezers or her fingers. And they have no natural enemies here, I guess.
Yeah.
And Lord knows, back to parasites.
Yeah.
Things get out of control. But for better or for worse, the planet's changing on every level.
Yeah. So some might kind of negatively view humans as sort of a parasite on the earth. That could be a perspective. Kind of out of control.
Yeah. I prefer the plan that we're like cows.
Yeah.
We're here to manage things for some other
Yeah.
entity.
And maybe we get to choose. There is that reality too. I think ultimately one can choose how they want to show up in this world, and in doing so, you kind of create your own reality. You can have,
we keep finding more and more and more evidence. Hey, the part of it is just that I remember even talking about hurricanes and tornadoes and stuff in Saskatchewan and saying that we never have tornadoes there, but we've always had tornadoes in the boreal forest. It's just that there was nobody around to see them.
Right.
And as we end up everywhere now, even when I did my runaway to the woods trip, that's already, how many years ago? 50? It occurred to me that it's really hard to get away.
Right.
Because never mind what's going on with satellites and everything up there, but even just at least once every second day a light plane would fly over or something.
Right.
It's hard to hide.
No, totally. I mean, Canada, in particular Western Canada, Northern Canada, is some of the last remaining wilderness and in the world. I mean, Siberia and Russia's got a decent amount, but even all that is, as you say, accessed, encroached upon.
And with all of our modern technology, all of the big pharma companies have field scouts that are going through jungles in Thailand and just about everywhere looking for new plants that might have new answers. So many of our drugs, penicillin's a fungi, so many of the things that we grew up with and overused. This is just something I was writing about yesterday, was that I know with oregano oil, for example, there's a lot of people that take it every day in the winter months as a preventative, but most of the aromatherapy type people that I've met from France and Australia just think we're absolutely stupid in Canada and the States that people do that, because it's one of the ones that, like, I call it a big gun.
Right.
So people say, "Oh, Blaine, you don't have any oregano? I've got some good oregano. I got the best oregano down. I could get you some oregano." I've got 5 kinds. When have I used any last? Years ago.
Yeah.
Because there's something gentler that's as effective,
Right.
or not. But I want to have the oregano there if I ever really need it. And the more that we overuse it, just like penicillin, then things adapt. Like there was, again, this is years ago, a documentary where I think of it almost in cartoon-like fashion, where they were showing, they had actually discovered that some of the pesticides, some of the beetles These were to get rid of, I think it was potato beetles in particular. And within 2 years, they had pictures of beetles crawling up to the leaves when they heard the planes coming.
Right.
They were literally crawling up to the upper surfaces of the plant, going like this to the planes coming, and they'd actually learned to feed on
Right.
the chemicals.
Yeah.
They could eat them
Wow.
in as little as 2 years, that we adapt to something so quickly. And yet we look at some of the oldest ways like that our grandparents had, and you're starting new with a farm. Some of the oldest ways still work because we forgot about them,
Yeah. Yeah.
at least for a while, a couple of generations. We get all of this new stuff that seems to work better or faster or whatever,
Yeah.
and we overdo it. Things adapt to resist.
Yeah. Well, on the topic of oils, so we were on the drive over. You wanted to kind of continue on a thought from last time.
Oh, with the smell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was embarrassed when I was doing some writing here, just again for these YouTubes that no, that's you. You are the YouTube guy. I'm doing some writing for the woman who bought my business, and there's so much I'd forgotten, and it embarrassed me that this didn't come up when her question came up. When you see these little clips that essential oils are the most direct route to the brain at speeds of like 200 miles an hour or some darn thing, however fast signals flow in a neuron.
Yeah.
So neurons, we've got it, maybe I'm the neuron, and this hand is the sensory, they're called dendrites, I think. So I'm a sensory neuron, so my hands, I got a lot of hands, are going to sense the temperature over here. And my left hand is either touching or even going directly into Malcolm's brain. There's no other cells in or on our body that do that, where one hand of a single cell is in your environment and inside your brain. So up in the top of your sinuses, there's an area called the cribriform plate that if it wasn't there, if you sneezed really hard, your brains would fall out, kind of thing. And it's a bony plate with tiny little holes in it. And the axons, the going out part of the nerves, are in little bundles called fila to make bigger wires, and then the fila go through the cribriform plate and directly into brain tissue. So the swelling that would have been associated with COVID, being it was a virus and a lot of the symptoms were cold-like, so there'd be a buildup of more mucus and swelling of that tissue, could be just pinching, almost like sciatica is where a nerve gets pinched that's going through your pelvic bone.
Right.
So the nerves might just be getting pinched off. And we've got a lot of essential oils that are anti-inflammatories, all right? And some of them are antiviral, not because we said so, but there's actual science to prove it.
Yeah.
Things like hyssop, for example. I mean, they were using it for plagues long before the time of Jesus. In fact, in the history of our species, Christ's time on our planet was a fairly modern story really, like we used to think that the pyramids were ancient.
Right.
Well, not anymore, because we found so many older things, in the years since that's almost like an infill, infill housing kind of thing. So anyway, it occurred to me that it's quite likely that those nerves were either damaged by the virus or just a lot of swelling has occurred. The nerves are getting pinched, and so that just deep inhalations, you just take, it's like when I'm just for a cold, just for getting a cold or something, I just take 1 or 2 drops, rub my hands together. Some oils will kind of irritate the eyes, so you close your eyes and just breathe real deep through your nose. And because a lot of things that might be in your sinuses could be in the back of your throat as well, when you breathe in through your nose like you should, exhale through your mouth, and that's going to have a lot of the viruses spinning around treating your throat as well.
Right.
So you breathe in through your mouth, down through, and I used to, before I knew better, do this, and because a lot of the oils are expectorant, they're going to make you cough. If you've got a bad virus in your throat and you cough like this, you can spread a viral infection to your eyes.
Right.
And I did that once. And it took me a while to figure out what had happened. And I was actually in front of a small class when the infection in my eyes, behind my eyes, had gotten so severe that while talking to a group of people, I had a little bit of pus coming out of one of my eyes. And one of the students close to me said, "Brain, there's it took me a while to figure out what I had done there."
Right.
And it got worse, and I remember it was Halloween, and it had spread to both eyes. And I just thought, well, I have to do something about this. And I went and sat for a while at an ER because I was so concerned with how sick I'd become. And the doctor I ended up seeing thought that there wasn't much she could do necessarily. We could try an antibiotic, but I said, well, what if it's viral? Because I think it probably is. And she said, oh, I got nothing for viruses. I said, well, I do. And she literally took some notes.
Right.
I gave her the ingredients in my cold sore blend is what I used.
Yeah.
And so she gave me a prescription for, just in case, you may as well try it, an antibiotic eye drops. And then I stopped at the pharmacy on the way home and told the pharmacist what was happening. And she took my recipe down as well.
Yeah.
She said, well, that sounds pretty cool. We had it all cleared up within about 48 hours. But, when you're coughing, don't cover your whole face because you're getting things into your eyes, right?
Right.
Very sensitive mucous membranes there and all that sort of thing. So, nose and mouth, and deep inhalations for about as long as the smell lasts, like a minute. It's probably 2 minutes or something. And just do that several times a day. So there's oils that are anti-inflammatory, a lot of the sesquiterpenes, things like frankincense, some of the chamomiles. I hadn't taken the time to look at all of the different terpenes that are in some of the CBD oils, but I think some of the CBD oils might work the same way because they're anti-inflammatory. So there's inflammation, but you may as well use something that's antiviral at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's where my top pick would probably be hyssop,
Right.
because it's got a lot of, like I say, going all the way back to pre-biblical times, a lot of history. They didn't know why, they just knew that it got rid of the plague. And even some types of lavender, like there's one called lavender, not spike, lavender stochas, or stochas is how it's spelled. Has a few more ketones in it. But try some regular deep inhalations, like just every couple hours.
Yeah.
Because you're only using a drop or two at a time, so it's not going to be expensive. And that might make all the difference in the world. So there's your
Yeah.
hot tip for the day that I never thought of until 2 days later.
Yeah. There we are.
We miss things, hey? There's too much on the hard drive.
There we are.
And sometimes things go missing.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, we covered a lot of ground today.
We covered a lot of air. Space, ground, all of it, from rocks to space.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Right on.
Good one.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Post your comments, your questions, share it out. And yeah, we'll be back for another one.
Tell your friends.
All right. Bye for now.
Bring your dog.